Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating collision between the software we use every day and the physical hardware that makes it all possible. We are at this totally unique moment in human history right now where software demands are evolving so incredibly fast that they're basically forcing unprecedented, lightning-fast breakthroughs in hardware manufacturing. It's a real game changer. So I'm super excited to walk you through this massive ripple effect, starting at the very top with Fortune 500 software budgets and traveling all the way down to the foundational silicon chips that are being built at absolute breakneck speeds to keep up. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's a quick look at our agenda. We'll start off with the soaring cost of agentic AI, explore intelligence per dollar, and then look at the open source surge. After that, we'll break down the barbell strategy before hitting the 9-month custom chip and finally wrapping up with the overarching chip supercycle. So I want to start off with what seems like a pretty simple question. What actually happens when AI gets too expensive to use? It sounds totally counterintuitive, right? I mean, AI is supposed to save us money, but the reality inside corporate boardrooms right now is actually very different. Companies are blowing through their AI budgets faster than ever before. There's this massive bottleneck forming, and it literally all traces back to a fundamental shift in how we're actually asking artificial intelligence to work for us. Section 1. The cost of agentic AI. To really understand this budget squeeze, we have to look at the very first domino to fall, which is the rise of agentic AI. For the past couple of years, we've basically treated AI like a super smart search engine. You ask a question, it gives you an answer, one input, one output. It's basically single-player mode. But agentic work is an entirely different beast. We're now asking these models to act like autonomous workers. We want them to plan out a whole project, write the code, test that code, realize they made a mistake, fix it, and just loop continuously until the job is fully done. And because the AI is stuck in this continuous loop, performing multiple steps in the background, it's just burning through an exponential amount of tokens. And tokens are essentially the raw materials, the computing units that AI models charge you for. So when your AI is running a million microtasks in the background just to finish one large project, your token volume absolutely skyrockets. For large enterprises trying to scale this up to thousands of employees, their budgets are severely strained. They literally cannot afford to run their entire business on the most expensive AI models all day long. Which brings us to Section 2, intelligence per dollar. Because of this crushing financial pressure, the whole tech world is doing a massive pivot. We are officially entering the era of a brand new software metric. Look, for the last few years, everyone was totally obsessed with AI leaderboards, like who has the absolute smartest model in the world. But as Box CEO Aaron Levy points out, that is just not how companies actually buy software. The new metric we care about is intelligence per dollar. Companies are now asking, what is good enough for the specific task, and what is the cost going to be if my employees run it a million times over the next month? So how do you actually get that good enough intelligence without the massive price tag? Well, the answer is an incredibly clever industry hack called distillation. Think of it kind of like a master passing their knowledge down to an apprentice. You take the outputs of a massive, incredibly expensive frontier model, and you use that pristine data to train a smaller, highly efficient, and much cheaper model to behave just like it. And this technique is rapidly closing the performance gap between those ultra-expensive models and the budget-friendly ones. Section 3, the open source surge. Now, look at how this creates a truly compelling business case, especially driven by international labs who are leveraging these exact efficiency techniques. The Chinese open source model, GLM 5.2 from Z.AI, is a perfect example of this. On complex, agented benchmarks, it performs just one single percentage point below Anthropic's Opus 4.8, which, by the way, is one of the most powerful and expensive models in the world. But here is the real kicker. It does this at 1/5 the cost. For a Fortune 500 company trying to deploy AI agents at scale, finding a model that's 99% as good for just 20% of the price is an absolute game changer. It perfectly hits that sweet spot we talked about, high capability and low cost. So the crucial takeaway here is this. Open source models don't actually need to be the absolute smartest in the world on day one. They just need to stay close. Experts note that open source models are currently maintaining about a 3 to 6 month performance delay behind the absolute cutting-edge frontier models. And in the corporate world, a 3 to 6 month gap is perfectly acceptable. It is well within the normal diffusion of technology. You definitely don't lose your competitive edge just because your AI is basically what the top-tier AI was, say, back in March. All right, Section 4, the barbell strategy. So with all these highly capable, super cheap models flooding the market, how do companies actually organize their tech stack to survive that token explosion we talked about earlier? Well, Welcome to the new corporate architecture, the barbell strategy. On one side of the barbell, you have your frontier models. These are super expensive, so you only use them for the absolute hardest tasks, things like high-level planning, orchestrating complex workflows, and reviewing final outputs. They're basically the managers. On the other side of the barbell, you have the open source models. These are incredibly cheap, so you deploy them for the heavy lifting, parsing through millions of documents, generating endless lines of standard code, and doing all that repetitive agentic looping. When you actually visualize this routing strategy, it's pretty wild. Notice the massive volume split here. A company might send only 10% of its total tokens to those expensive frontier models, while routing 90% of the massive volume over to the cheaper open source models. The budget itself might end up split 50-50, but the actual volume of work is handled by the cheaper models. This clever routing is exactly what allows the software side of the industry to scale up without going completely bankrupt. Moving on to Section 5, the 9-month custom chip. But here's the thing. Even with software routing and distillation, the sheer volume of this agentic work requires a physical foundation. Software alone cannot fix this. This software crisis has actually triggered a monumental hardware response. 9 months. I really want that number to sink in for a second. Historically, designing and building a state-of-the-art silicon chip, which is often described as literally the most complicated object manufactured by humanity, takes years of development. But driven by this insane demand for cheaper compute, Broadcom and OpenAI collaborated to design a custom chip entirely from scratch in just 9 months. The impact of this 9-month turnaround on the whole chip design industry is just staggering. It completely shatters the traditional multi-year R&D cycle, and it proves that the cycles of innovation in hardware are being radically compressed to meet the relentless, massive demands of AI. Let's look at the actual specs of this breakthrough. The chip is codenamed Jalapeno, and it is OpenAI's very first custom inference chip. And what's truly mind-blowing here is the feedback loop. OpenAI actually used its own AI models to help design the chip faster. We have literally reached the point where AI is building the next generation of AI hardware. Broadcom states this chip aims to cut inference costs by roughly 50% compared to current NVIDIA GPUs. And this isn't just some small experiment either. It's part of a massive 10-gigawatt infrastructure deal spanning the next 5 years. They're specifically building this hardware to solve the exact agentic cost problem we were just talking about. And finally, Section 6, the chip supercycle. This kind of brings us to the bigger macroeconomic picture. When companies like OpenAI and Broadcom are moving this fast and deploying tens of billions of dollars, we really have to ask ourselves, what does the future demand for chips actually look like? Semiconductor analyst Stacy Rasgon provided a really fantastic framework to understand this. Historically, the tech sector goes through a few different types of cycles. You've got inventory cycles based on short-term demand, supply cycles based on material shortages, which, by the way, we're seeing right now in memory chips, and product cycles, where a company wins or loses a specific contract. But then, you have a true demand supercycle. This happens when an unprecedented new application entirely overpowers all previous market forecasts. And according to the experts, we are here. The future demand for chips isn't just growing, it is a complete structural transformation of global infrastructure. But wait a second. If Broadcom and OpenAI are building chips that cut costs by 50%, and open source models are slashing software costs by 80%, wouldn't the demand for hardware actually go down? Well, absolutely not. And here is the key insight, the Jevons paradox. Historically in economics, and especially in semiconductors, whenever you make a resource significantly cheaper and more efficient, people don't use less of it to save money, they actually find entirely new ways to consume vastly more of it. By solving the cost problem of AI, we are actually opening the floodgates for more agents, more looping, and vastly more compute in the future. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating conclusion to ponder. If driving down the cost of AI through clever software routing, open source models, and record-breaking 9-month custom chips only serves to accelerate usage, what actually puts a lid on this supercycle? Is it the power grid, the raw materials, or maybe our own ability to manage millions of autonomous agents? It is a truly thrilling time in technology, and I hope this explainer has helped you connect the dots from the software we use every day all the way down to the incredible silicon powering it all. Thanks so much for watching, and keep asking great questions.